Hey everybody, this is Tracy here to recap This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 12. And this episode was entitled The Big Day. And so I finally got the name of the doctor. I kept forgetting to go onto the IMBD site to find out what his character's name was, but it is Dr. Kantowski. So I'm so happy I figured that out. And especially since this episode deals a lot with the backstory of Jack and Rebecca and Dr. Kantowski and actually the guy who found Randall at the fire station. So let's go ahead and get started. We opened in the past, and actually the entire episode is done in the past, so I don't have to keep saying, present past this time. And so Jack and Rebecca, they're sitting in they're still in the apartment. They haven't moved into the house, and Jack puts on some Stevie Wonder, and then the babies start, I guess, moving around. And so he's telling Rebecca, I told you, they're going to have rhythm and soul. And he pulls Rebecca up, and the two of them start dancing around, after they feel the babies moving. And so we then transition into a scene where they are trying to come up with baby names, and the names that they're thinking of are not the names that we ended up with. I think if it was a girl, it was going to be named Farrah. And I'm thinking that came from Farrah Fawcett, because this would have been during the era of Charlie's Angels, I believe. I think. So anyway, poor Rebecca, she's having a really hard time being pregnant, but Jack is loving every moment of it. And, now she's like huge with these babies. I think they said that they were 6 weeks away from the due date, but because it's triplets, she could expect to have the baby any day now. But Rebecca doesn't care. She's sick of being pregnant. She's sick of being in this little tiny house that has no air condition. And she's tired of the fact that whenever she goes over to the house, there's a lot of construction, and she has to put, I think she said she had to put like plastic bags on her feet or something like that. But anyway, Rebecca's not in a good mood most of this episode. And so Jack says that Rebecca has gone to the dark side, and Miguel calls and, wish Jack a happy birthday and invite him out for, a day of fun with the boys. But Jack says that he has to stay home and continue to feel the wrath of Rebecca. Those are my words, not his. But he was afraid to leave the house for fear that, I guess he'd come back and Rebecca would have left or something. So we move over to Dr. Kantowski, and he is appearing to be talking to his wife about the grandkids coming over. But I think he's the only one in the house, so the wife has passed away, but he's living with the memory or something. And he opens up the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and there's a bunch of prescriptions, but I couldn't see who the prescriptions were made out to. But we later learned that they were actually the wife's prescriptions that he hadn't thrown away. And so he sits down in the dining room. Of course, he's all by himself, and he's eating a bowl of cereal by, alone, although he's having this conversation with his wife. And so next we have someone in a confessional at a Catholic church, and he's saying that he lied to his wife about quitting smoking, but that he's still smoking. And then he says that they aren't in a good place in their marriage, and he asks the priest that he's talking to just, please pray for a miracle, that his marriage can be saved. So back to Jack and Rebecca's, and she is complaining about how hot it is. So like I said, there was no air conditioning. She comes in, she opens the refrigerator. She's got like leaning back into the refrigerator trying to cool off. And Jack offers to take her to the movies, and she's like, I don't want to go to the movies. But he explains to her, well, it will be like a date, and plus, the movies has all the air conditioning that you want, and we can stay there, and enjoy that air conditioning for as long as you like. But Rebecca's like, I'm not going to the movies with you, and to be honest with you, I don't want to look at you, and I want you out of this house. So she kicks Jack out of the house. And I'm just feeling so sorry for Jack, because he is so in love with Rebecca and so in love with these babies that are about to come, that he just, lets it roll off his shoulder. But then we have him, he's out in the car, because she's kicked him out, and he pulls out a lighter. And so he flicks the lighter, and he's talking to it like he's talking to God, and telling the lighter or God, whoever he's talking to, that he thinks that his wife has been possessed. And at the same time, he's saying that Rebecca comes out of the back door of the house. I thought it was an apartment, but it was actually a house. And she comes out of the back door and she is yelling at him again and complaining about the bathroom not working or something going on in the bathroom. She was just very angry, very irritable, and very not a nice person at this moment of her pregnancy. So then we have Dr. Kentowski, and he's in the grocery store, and he runs into a lady who I'm thinking was a friend of him and his wife. And we learned that her husband also passed away. And so she's telling Jack that he needs to put the cereal back because it was nothing but sugar. And he tells her that his grandkids are coming to visit and that the cereal is actually for them. And then she offers to cook dinner for him sometime. But Dr. Kentowski doesn't seem interested, and he lets her know that he's on call all the time and that the calls usually come in around dinner time. So, he's going to have to pass on the offer. And so she says, she understands. So then later we have a scene where he's with his son and his daughter-in-law, and the son is asking him, about dating again, and isn't there some nice women that he could meet and maybe go to dinner and to a movie, but he doesn't seem interested in all of that. And so I'm really confused at this point because I don't see any grandkids. It was just the son and the wife and the doctor sitting at the table, and it was just like a very awkward moment. Like they didn't seem to be enjoying each other's company that much. So I don't know what's going on with that situation. And so then it finally clicks in my head that the guy that was at the confessional, I thought it was a police officer, but it actually was a fireman. So it was the fireman who actually finds Randall at the outside the fire station and takes him to the hospital. So his name is Joe, and he's returning home, and his wife is pretty much acting like Rebecca, just angry and upset and unappreciative of anything that he says and does. And he walks in and he lets her know that he had gone, to talk to the priest, and that he had asked him to pray for a miracle for their marriage, but she doesn't seem to be too interested in a miracle or in saving her marriage. But judging by her response, like I said, it wasn't a good idea that he's sending up prayers and hopeful that they can work things out. So while at work, Joe decides to go outside for something. I don't know if he was going to smoke a cigarette or what, but that's when he finds baby Randall laying in a box, outside the door. And then we can see William is like leaning up against a wall around the corner, watching and waiting for someone to find him. So he takes the baby inside and tell, his co-workers, and then they tell him to take the baby over to the police precinct, and they'll know what to do with it. But instead of doing that, he decides to take the baby home to his wife and tell his wife that God has answered their prayers and sent them this baby. And she asked him, had he lost his damn mind that, God didn't send that baby to save their marriage. And I'm just feeling so sorry for him because he just, like Jack, they just have these lovable faces and demeanors about them, and then they have these angry wives, and you're kind of like, oh my God, why must they endure this? And then the wife, realizes that it's a newborn baby, and she tells him, that's a newborn baby. You need to get it to the hospital before, something happens, and they arrest you, I guess, for stealing the baby or delaying taking it to the hospital and something happens to the baby. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Miguel had called earlier in the show to wish Jack a happy birthday and to offer to take him out for the day, but Jack had turned him down, saying that Rebecca is being very moody and I need to stay here with her. Well, I guess after Rebecca kicked him out and told him she won't be bothered with him, he went ahead and called Miguel. And so him and Miguel are at a golf course, and Jack is like, what are we doing here? I don't like golf. And Miguel is like, well, I don't like golf either, but once those babies come, you're going to have to find a means of release. And so I guess what Miguel does is he goes and plays golf when things are kind of tense at the house. And so he tells Jack that he's going to buy him a gift, that he's going to get him some golf shoes and an outfit or something. So the two of them go into the pro shop where they meet these other guys that Miguel knows. And so Miguel introduces Jack and tells the guys that, Jack has triplets on the way, and so he gets that same response from everybody, like, oh my God, we feel sorry for you. But Jack is like, I love my wife, I love my babies, I'm excited, waiting for them to come. I don't think it's a bad thing. And the guys was like, that's because they're not here yet. But you're gonna need this golf, because golf can take up, a game of golf can take up about 4 hours. And when them kids get to crying and carrying on, you're gonna want, some free time. But Jack is like, no thanks, but no thanks. I need to go home and see about my wife. And I just love Jack so much. I really, really do. All men should be as kind, compassionate, and considerate as he is. So back at home, we have Rebecca, and she's realizing like what a bitch she has been towards Jack. And then it finally dawns on her that it is Jack's birthday and that she forgot. And I guess it was like their tradition that she makes him some kind of German chocolate truffle cake or something, she said. And so she goes in the kitchen and she's trying to pull out the ingredients, but she doesn't have all the ingredients to make the cake. So then she calls her friend Shelly, and I can't remember if Shelly is Miguel's wife or not, but anyway, she's going on this rant about what a horrible wife she's being, how mean she's being to Jack, and she needs to cook this cake, but she doesn't have a car to go to the store to get the ingredients. And then after she goes through this long ramble, we realize that Shelly never answered the telephone, so she was talking to herself. And so she hangs up the phone and she goes and she gets what's that silver tape? It's like electrical, the construction tape. And she gets that and she like tapes up the straps on her shoes. She had on some like flip flops and she tapes them up. And then she proceeds to walk to the store. And this was a bad idea for two reasons. Because number one, she runs into a lady who has it wasn't a baby. He probably was like 1 year old, or maybe, yeah, about 1.5 years old. And this kid is like screaming and crying and turning all around in this stroller. And the lady's just looking like she's over it, but she keeps pushing. And so that was number one. And then number two was, it is known that when you are in the latter part of your pregnancy, if you do extensive walking, that you can cause yourself to dilate and go into labor. And a lot of women do that when they have like a week or so left to go and they just want to be over the pregnancy. They'll go out and they'll walk around the mall, walk at the park, just walk, trying to, get the labor process to begin. And it looks like that's exactly what happened to Rebecca. But before we get to that part, Rebecca ends up at the liquor store. And I guess this was the first store that she got to when she was walking. And so she comes in and she gives this guy this long list of baking items. And the guy's looking at her like she's crazy. And he's like, ma'am, this is a liquor store. And she tells him, yes, but it says liquor and more. So I need the more to be these things that's on this list. And so the guy tells her, he's sorry he doesn't have them. So then Rebecca snaps on him. And so the guy is looking at her like, okay, let me fix this situation. And he tells her, okay, so I have this banana muffin. And she says, okay, that's a start. Do you have some icing? So he didn't have icing. He says, but I have a Twinkie. So Rebecca gets the icing and the Twinkie and goes on about her way after apologizing to the guy. At home, Rebecca makes Jack a birthday cupcake with the muffin and the filling from the Twinkie, and then she put some sprinkles on it and added a candle. And I thought that was cute. Women are good at improvising in stressful situations. And so she goes into the nursery and she sits in the rocking chair and starts talking to the babies about how she can't wait for them to get there. And, she's excited about making them Halloween costumes. And she tells them that, they're going to have a great dad and that they're really going to love Jack. And then she talks about some of her fears and insecurities about becoming a mother. And I think that may be why they're kind of messed up, because she overcompensated for the things that she was afraid of doing wrong. And so it kind of like reflects in your kids. Because I think I had that same issue with my oldest daughter, where I was just so protective of her as a new mom and didn't know what to do, that I probably smothered her with love and put this block around, this fence around her, and then she kind of like rebelled against that. But she turned out to be a phenomenal individual. So Jack comes in with a camcorder, and Rebecca learns that he's been standing outside recording her the entire time she was talking. And she tells him that, she forgot his birthday, and that, but she did get him the world's worst birthday present and the world's worst cupcake for his birthday. And Rebecca, I really take issue for you. I'm talking about my Steelers like that, because what she gave him was one of those what's those Steeler towels that they have, and it says something about terrible something, but they were on the news last night, and I can't remember what those towels say, but they're, the gold towels, and then they have the black writing, and it says terrible something. But anyway, Jack loved the gift. He loves everything about Rebecca, so it doesn't matter what she gave him. He was going to like it. So that scene actually kind of took us into the opening scene of the actual season of the show, where they're playing around, and Jack is telling her, he still wants to have sex, even though she's about to give birth to triplets, and they end up in labor and going to the hospital. So back at Dr. Katowski's, and he walks in on his son and daughter-in-law, and they're in the kitchen talking about him. And so, they let him know that they are officially worried about him, because the mom has been gone for a year. And he corrects them and lets them know that she's been dead for 14 months, and he knows because he was the one that buried her, and that they were married for 53 years, and that he's never going to move on from her because she was his wife and his life. And I'm thinking, that is so sad. And so I think we saw some grandkids run by, but I didn't see the kids. Like, I saw the kids run by, but I'm not sure if they really happened or if he imagined that there were some kids in the house, because he turned around and started to run after them and say something about, grandpa's going to get you or something. But the son and the daughter-in-law never moved. So, and then it just faded away. So we don't know if he was imagining that there were kids in the house or if there really were. I'm not sure. So Dr. Katowski takes flowers to his wife's grave, and he's complaining about the son and how the son thinks he knows everything, and he's only been married for 10 years. And he tells her that every morning he opens the medicine cabinet and looks at her pills. So those were the wife's pills that we saw earlier in the show. And he lets her know that he is starting to give up hope. But as he's starting to break down and cry, he gets a page to come to the hospital. And it turns out that that page is actually because Dr. Snyder, who was Jack and Rebecca's actual obstetrician, has, had the appendicitis thing going on, and now Jack and Rebecca are at the hospital. So he's that's how he got the call to come in and deliver the babies. So we pretty much, for the the next 10 minutes, get that whole opening scene from episode 1. Pretty much replays and kind of cutting and leading up to where Jack goes to Rebecca after visiting the nursery. And Rebecca says that she felt the 3 babies moving, that she knew they were alive, earlier in the day, and that they were kicking, and she feels like they are still meant to have 3 babies. And then Jack, tells her, maybe we are. And then it fades back to Joe and his wife, and he's coming in, and she asks him, what did you do with the baby? Did you get it to the hospital? And he tells her yes, and he begins to apologize, for thinking that that was the answer to their problems. But she cuts him off and lets him know that, she's been thinking about their situation, and, she feels bad how things are going. And he says, I feel the same way, and I just wish we could start over. And so she stands up and goes over to him and sticks out her hand and says, hi, Joe. She says, hi, my name is Samantha. And then he says, his name is Joe. And then they decide to go for coffee. So back at the hospital, the station nurse lets Dr. Katowski know that Jack and Rebecca had been inquiring about adopting the baby that had been abandoned at the fire station. And so he returns home, and he's talking to his wife again, and he's telling her all about meeting Jack and how he had shared, the story about her and his life with Jack, and that was the first time he had ever done that. And then this prompts him to finally accept that his wife is gone, and so he lets her know that he thinks it's time, and he goes in and he starts packing up all of her clothes and her belongings, I guess, to pack away or even give away. And so I'm like, oh my God, this show leaves me all in my feelings. And so it ends with Jack and Rebecca showing the kids, who look like they could be probably like maybe 5 or 6 at the time, and he's showing them the videos that he made from her pregnancy. And then we have Joe and Samantha, and they're out to dinner talking and laughing, and Dr. Katowski and the lady from the grocery store are having dinner together. So I just can't say it enough. I love this show with all its complexities and simplicity and love, and how it shows that no matter what, all our lives are intricately intertwined in some kind of way, and we're all connected to somebody else. And it's sort of like that 6 degrees of separation thing. And so, like I say, love the show. And this was just another great episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will catch you guys with the next episode that airs tomorrow. And I promise it won't take me a week to review it. So until next time, bye-bye.